Well, it is now referred to as the Los Angeles baby murder cases, a rather catchy title. When it was actually happening, right in the middle of the whirlpool, it was never called anything so impressive. The media called it the Warreningio murders, or the LA serial locked room killings, or all kinds of other ghastly names. This fact was undoubtedly a source of great annoyance to Beyond Birthday, the perpetrator of the murders in question. But frankly, I think those names provide a more accurate description of what was actually happening. Either way, the day after Beyond Birthday carried out the third of his murders, August 14th, 2002, 8:15 a.m. local time, the FBI agent Naomi Misora was lying dazedly on her bed in her apartment, having just woken up. She was wearing dark leather pants and a matching leather jacket, but it would be a mistake to assume that she customarily slept in this outfit. She had spent several hours racing around on her motorcycle the night before, in a vain effort to burn off stress. And when she finally returned to her apartment, she had fallen asleep instantly into a sound slumber without bothering to shower or undress. Much like the name of the case, Misora has now entered the public consciousness as the one who eventually cracked the Los Angeles baby murder cases. But the truth is that these events were unfolding in real time. She had been suspended from her duties as an FBI agent. According to the official records, she was just on leave of absence, but this is purely because she had absolutely no ability whatsoever to stand up to the pressure from her superiors and colleagues. Suspension, leave, summer vacation. I don't think we need to go into the reasons for her suspension here. What is certain is that this was America. She was Japanese, female, very good at her job, and the FBI is a large organization, which ought to be enough information. Obviously, she did have colleagues who had a high opinion of her, which is exactly why she'd been able to work in the organization so far. But a month before, just before the Los Angeles baby murders, Misora had made a major blunder, so major that even she could not believe it, which led directly to her current situation. This was not the kind of problem that could be alleviated by racing around in the middle of the night on a motorcycle. Misora was seriously considering quitting the FBI, casting off her entire life, and moving back to Japan. Obviously, part of her was sick and tired of all the nonsense that came with the job, but even more than that was the guilt she felt over her own mistake, which hung up on her shoulders like a dead weight. Even if there had been no pressure from those around her, not that this hypothetical was even remotely possible, Misora would have asked for time off herself, or even resigned. Misora slowly peeled herself off the bed, intending to shower away the sweat of the night before, but then she noticed the laptop on her desk was, for some reason, turned on. She had no recollection of turning it on. After all, she'd just woken up. Had she hit the switch on her way in last night, and then fallen asleep without shutting it down again? She didn't remember doing that, but since a screensaver was working, there seemed to be no other explanation. One would assume that if she had enough energy left to turn on her computer, she would have had enough energy to undress. Misora peeled off her jacket and pants, and with her body feeling much lighter, she got off the bed, moved over to her desk, and jiggled the mouse. This was enough to clear the screensaver, but at this point, Misora became even more confused. The main email program is running and flashing a "new mail" message. It was possible that she'd fallen asleep last night with her computer on, but to fall asleep in the middle of checking her email? While she was still wondering about that, she clicked on her inbox. There was one new message, from Ray Penber. This was the name of Misora's current boyfriend, also an FBI agent. He was the most obvious example of the agents who had a high opinion of her. Not that this stopped him from begging her to transfer to a less dangerous department every time something happened. Since her leave was almost over, this might well just be business. So Misora went ahead and opened the message. Naomi Misora-sama, I apologize for contacting you like this. I would like to request your help in solving a certain case. If you're willing to assist me, please access the third block of the third section of the Funny Dish server on August 14th at 9 a.m. The line will be open for exactly 5 minutes. Please break through the firewall yourself. L. P.S. In order to contact you, I took the liberty of borrowing your friend's address. This was the simplest and safest way to contact you, so please forgive me. Regardless of whether you agree to help me or not, I need you to destroy this computer within 24 hours of reading this message. When she finished reading, Misora immediately reread the entire message and checked the sender's name again. L. She may have been suspended, but she was still an FBI agent, and obviously she recognized the name. It would have been unforgivable had she not. She briefly considered the idea that Ray Pember, or someone else, was playing a practical joke on her, but she found it hard to believe that anyone would be so bold to sign their name as such. L never revealed himself in public or in private, but Misora had heard several horror stories about what had happened to the detectives who tried passing themselves off as L. It was safe to say that no one would dare use his name, even in jest. So... Ugh, dang! She grumbled, and proceeded to take her shower, washing away the exhaustion of the night before. She dried her long black hair and drank a cup of hot coffee. But she was only pretending to consider the matter. She did not really have a choice. No FBI agent, particularly a low-ranking one, would ever consider turning down a request from L. But at this time, Misora did not have a particularly favorable opinion of the great Detective L. So, she had to pretend to hesitate, if only to make herself feel better. If you consider Misora's personality, the reasons for this are clear. It seemed obvious that the reason her laptop had been turned on was that Elle had hacked it, and she was more than a little depressed that she'd have to randomly destroy the new computer she had just purchased a month before. I don't mind. I mean, I do, but she didn't have a choice. At just past 8:50, Misora sat down in front of her laptop, which now had less than 23 hours left to live, and began following Elle's instructions. She was not an expert hacker, but she had been taught the basics as part of her FBI training. Just as she successfully gained access to the server, her entire screen went white. Misora was momentarily alarmed, but then she noticed a giant calligraphic L floating in the center of the screen, and relaxed.
Naomi Misora,
came a voice from the laptop speakers. After a brief pause, it was obviously a synthetic voice. But this was the voice recognized as Elle's by every investigative department in the world. Misora had heard it several times before, but this was the first time it had ever addressed her directly. It felt weird, like she was hearing her name on TV. Not that she'd ever had that experience, but this is what she imagined it would be like.
this is Elle.
Hi, Misora started to say, but then realized how pointless that was. Her laptop did not have a microphone installed, and there was no way for him to hear her. Instead, she typed in, "This is Naomi Misora. It's an honor to speak to you, Elle." If her connection was sound, you should be able to receive this.
Naomi Misora, are you familiar with the murder investigation going on in Los Angeles as we speak?
Elle got right down to business, without acknowledging her words at all. Presumably, this was because he had to complete this communication by 9:05. But his manner and attitude rubbed Misora the wrong way, like it was a given that she'd cooperate with him. Which was true, but acting like it showed no respect for her pride. Misora allowed herself to bang on the keyboard rather loudly. "I am not so skilled that I can keep track of all murder investigations happening in Los Angeles."
Oh, I am.
He'd returned her sarcasm with a boast. Elle continued.
I'm referring to the serial killings. The third victim was found yesterday. I believe there will be more victims to come. HNN News is calling it the Wara Ningyo murders.
The Wara Ningyo murders? She had not heard about it. She was on leave and had been deliberately avoiding that kind of news. Misora had lived in Japan until she graduated high school and was familiar with the term, but hearing it pronounced in English gave it an edge of unfamiliarity.
I would like to solve this case,
Elle said.
I need to arrest the killer. but your help in this matter is vital, Naomi Misora.
Why me? She typed. This could be taken to mean either, why do you need my help? Or, why should I help you? But Elle took the first meaning without a moment's hesitation. Sarcasm appeared to be lost on him.
Naturally, because you are a skilled investigator, Naomi Misora.
I'm on leave of absence.
I know. Isn't that convenient?
3 victims, he said. Obviously, it depended on the victims, but from what Elle had told her, this case had not yet reached the kind of scale required for the FBI to get involved. She would normally have assumed that this was why he had approached her instead of going through the FBI director, but this was much too sudden, and she had been given almost no time to think things through. But it had been enough time for her to wonder why Elle would be involved in a case too small for the FBI to notice. She did not imagine that he would answer the question over her computer, however. She glanced at her clock. She had 1 more minute. Okay, I'll help in any way I can, Misora typed. Elle answered instantly.
Thank you. I knew you would agree.
He did not sound very thankful, but perhaps that could be blamed on the synthetic nature of his voice.
Let me explain how you will contact me in the future. We have no time, so I will be brief. First,
she had to know the basic details of the Los Angeles BB murder cases. On July 31st, 2002, in the bedroom of a small house on Hollywood's Incest Street, a man named Believed Bridesmaid was killed. He lived alone, working as a freelance writer. He had written articles for dozens of magazines under many different names and was relatively well known in the industry, which means exactly nothing. But in this case, it appears to have been fairly accurate. He was strangled. He was first knocked out with some sort of drug and then strangled from behind with some sort of string. There were no signs of struggle. All things considered, a smoothly executed crime. The second murder occurred 4 days later, on August 4th, 2002. This time, it was in downtown, in an apartment on 3rd Avenue, and the victim was a female named Corda Queen. This time, the victim was beaten to death, her skull caved in from the front with something long and hard. Once again, the victim appeared to have been drugged first and was unconscious at the time of death. As for why it was determined that these 2 murders were committed by the same killer, well, anyone who saw the scene of the crime instantly noticed the connection. There were straw voodoo dolls nailed to the walls at both places. These dolls were specifically known as Waraningyo. 4 of them on Incest Street, 3 of them on 3rd Avenue, nailed to the walls. The Waraningyo had been covered in the news, so strictly speaking, there was a chance of a copycat crime. But several other details matched as well, leading the police to begin treating the case as a serial killing. But if that was the case, that left a very big question. There was absolutely nothing to connect Believed Bridesmaid with Corda Queen. Neither one of them had the other's number in their cell phones. Neither one had the other's card in their business card holder. And besides, Corda Queen did not own a cell phone or a business card holder. She was a 13-year-old girl. What connection could she possibly have to a 44-year-old professional freelance writer? If there was a connection, it was probably through the girl's mother, who was out of town when the murder happened. But given the difference in neighborhoods and situations between the 2, it was still difficult to see any significant connection. To use a term from an old-fashioned detective novel, there was a missing link. They could not find any connection between the victims. The investigation had naturally focused on this, but 9 days later, by which time the media had begun calling them the Waraningyo murders, on August 13th, 2002, the 3rd murder happened. There were 2 Waraningyo on the wall. There was 1 less doll with each murder.